McCartney fans, and welcome to another edition of Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. This is episode 102. Can't believe it, Andy, but we're getting up there. We're working away. You know me, I'm Tom Hunyadi. You may know me from my other show, Talk More Talk, where we talk all solo Beatles. And with me today, as always, I got my buddy, my friend, my backwards traveler. He is Andy Nichols. Andy, what's going on?
Good. We took 2 legs on the road tonight, and we're on the road outside and enjoying the nice summer, late summer air.
Very good. Very good. And it looks good out there in the backyard. Little nighttime air. Is there a nice chill?
Air. Yeah, a little, just creating my own little chaos and creation in the backyard.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, as you can see, we have another guest with us, and this is just not no ordinary guest. Our guest today is a producer. He's an engineer, working with such acts like the Pet Shop Boys, Musical Youth, Peter Gabriel, Motorhead, and some guy named Paul McCartney. I don't know. We'll talk about that later on, maybe. He is Julian Mendelsohn. Julian, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to be on the show.
Awesome. So you're in Australia right now, Victoria, I think you said, right, earlier?
Yes, I'm back in Australia, been back for 15 years.
15 years, okay.
Really enjoying it.
Awesome.
Always wanted to come home after many years over in the UK.
Okay, cool. We'll get to that part of the adventure here in a second, but you got a nice website here, morenoise.com, and you got a nice little bio up there, so I figured we'll run through that for a couple minutes, and we'll talk about you getting started. So let's talk about from the beginning. It talks about you wanting to become a recording engineer. What was it about that job that just sprang into your mind for you to hop on a plane and go to the UK and try to become an engineer?
The first time I came in touch with a tape recorder was in probably the late 50s when my father brought home one of the very first tape recorders. It was called a Ferrograph, an English machine, and I think that's when the bug started. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and that was
really?
I was fascinated by it.
Right.
So that's where it started, and then it really started with haste at school when I was good friends with a bloke called Ian Mackenzie, who we were neighbours, and he was a bit of an electronics genius, and we used to buy old tape machines and muck around with them, and then we built a recording studio in his garage.
Okay.
The most important thing was having the double glass.
Okay.
But there was no sound insulation.
Gotcha.
That was very important.
Right.
The double glass. And anyway, that's how we both got in it. We had a little band together, and he ended up going towards the end of school. He ended up joining a big studio here called Bill Armstrong Studios, which recorded most of the stuff in the 60s and 70s in Australia.
Okay.
And he ended up becoming quite a well-known engineer here. And when I left school, both of us didn't go really great at school, actually. But when I left school, my mother married an Englishman, and he was a diplomat.
Okay.
And she'd always wanted to live in England, and he was posted back to England, and we all went, and
okay.
the beginning of the whole story.
So you all went together. You just didn't get on a plane and go yourself.
No.
Okay.
I do know somebody else who did that.
Okay.
I'll tell you about that later.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. All right.
I wonder who it could be.
Yeah.
You'll probably know him. You'll probably know. Oh, no, he never did McCartney.
Okay.
No. But he did do some big albums in the UK, mainly in the US, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's another story.
Gotcha. So you get there, and you talk about it takes you 2 years to finally find something.
Took me 2 or 3 years. I was a bit despondent. I really wanted to go home. It was all very alien. I mean, Australia and the UK, we've got a lot of similarities, but I was brought over to, we left Australia in the summer, in February, and we landed in the UK at Heathrow Airport on the most miserable night you could ever possibly find. Absolutely miserable. And there wasn't a motorway then. And my stepfather drove us to the picturesque house in a place called Cookham. He drove us through a place called Slough. Now, does that conjure up visions? Slough. That's the word you want to hear.
It does. As I lived in the UK for 2 years, so I remember seeing signs for Slough. So
yeah,
I am vaguely familiar.
Well, Slough is now a hub a high tech hub, but in those days it was definitely not a high tech hub in the early 70s. Anyway, I thought, what the hell am I getting myself into?
Right.
But, 2 or 3 years of, and I did little odd jobs here and there. Then I got a job doing big conference presentations with slide projectors and audio and all that sort of stuff. That was in the bad old days when everything was analog.
Gotcha.
And I had a really good client that I used to do all these audio voiceovers for, and I said, I've got to get out of here. I need to move on. And he said, funnily enough, I know this bloke in a little studio in Chelsea. He's just built this studio. He's an ex-BBC engineer.
Right.
And why don't you go and see him? Anyway, I went and saw this bloke, John Milner.
Right.
Funny little bloke, really nice little bloke. Had this simple but really great little studio that he built himself, including the mixing desk. He built the mixing desk, and I got the job, and I was on about £12
so
a week.
So how did that conversation go? You just walk in, you say, here, I'm here, I want a job, and teach me.
Yeah, I didn't ask him to teach me, but he did teach me all the basics, which I think was really important.
Right.
And anyway, I got the job, and then about 6 months later, there was all the coal miners' strike in the UK in 1974, I think. And we went on to a 3-day week. So I got the job and then lost half the job.
It says here you're making like £15 a week. I mean, were you still?
I think I started on 12. I went up to 15. I ended up on 20.
Right. Because I mean, you must have been living at home still with your mom and stepdad, because I can imagine that £15 doesn't really get you that much back in 1974.
What happened was I was living there living at home, which was an hour's train ride.
Oh, okay.
For a couple of years, and then I moved into a little bedsit in Fulham, in Parsons Green.
Right.
Andy, you know where Parsons Green is?
I've seen it. I haven't been to it, but I've seen it on a map.
Yeah. Anyway, funnily enough, my sister lives there now. But anyway.
Oh, cool.
And then I moved across the river to Wandsworth, and I was in another bedsit, which cost me £5.50 a week.
Ah. So you still had
I was in profit.
You still had a little bit left for the pub then, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, because John was not the most, he didn't really want to make the business a massive success. So he was happy just to cruise along. Because his father-in-law, who used to build power stations, a very wealthy man, wanted to have control over John. And therefore paid for the studio. So John was just cruising. He wanted to go to the pub at lunchtime, and that was pretty much it. But he did teach me a lot. Therefore, there was a lot of time to muck around with the mixing desk, learn by accident what I was doing. I mean, this mixing desk only had 10 channels. But it was a beautiful sounding desk.
Wow.
And I think we had 12 mics.
Right.
We had 12 mics and 10 channels.
Right.
So I really had to learn how to make the most of what I had. And gradually over a few years, I got a bit of a reputation, and I mean, I did some great bands, and I did recorded Paul Rogers.
Yeah, I'm saying some of the highlights are amazing. You got, Ian Hunter, you got Paul Rogers, Ian
Hunter, yeah.
Ian Dury, you got Gen X, Motorhead, which at that point in time, that was
a bizarre thing.
Yeah, you got, I mean, Lemmy must have been, crazy. I mean, just to work with them,
I was
a little
scared.
bit.
When they all walked in, I was scared. I thought, oh my God, what am I getting myself into here?
Well, how old were you at this point?
I was 22,
okay,
23, 24 maybe.
And Julian,
actually 75, I was 21.
Now, were you aware of these acts? Were they already established acts, or were they still up and coming at that time?
No, Ian Dury and the Blockheads were established.
Okay.
This was probably 76 when I did them. Lemmy I'd heard of.
Right.
Ian Hunter I had heard of. Paul Rogers was my Free were my big.
Yeah, he was already. Yeah, he was already established with Free.
Yeah, he was just like, oh my God, I'm recording Paul Rogers. Amazing. Yeah. But I'll never forget Lemmy coming in, and I was just really scared, thinking, my God, these guys are going to kill me.
And then you got a young Billy Idol as well.
I think I did Billy Idol. What was the band he was in?
Generation X. Yeah, Gen X.
Yeah, because I was at the beginning of the punk.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Late 70s. Sure.
Yeah. Very cool.
Billy Idol. He was. I don't remember much about that, but I did another punk band called The Members.
Yeah.
Who were a funk punk band.
Funk.
Funk. Yes.
Say that really quick 3 times.
Oh, I don't think you could.
They were a really great band, and
gotcha.
There was another band I did called. Oh God! Anyway, the keyboard player was a bloke called Julian Colbeck.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Who was in a band called Charlie. Big band in America. I seem to remember. Does that ring a bell?
Julian Colbeck does ring a bell. Yes.
Yeah, he now works for Alan Parsons.
Okay, there's the connection.
Right.
And he lives in the States. I don't really know where. I communicate with him occasionally. Still. One of the biggest highlights was doing a bloke called Charlie Ainley, who had a deal with Apple Records, and he had a band. He had pretty much Joe Cocker's band, which was Chris Stainton, Henry Spinetti.
Right.
Chris plays the keys, I think.
Yeah.
Chris Stainton was Henry Spinetti ended up with Eric Clapton. I can't remember the others. Anyway, they were amazing. They were amazing sessions because these guys could play. Even the mistakes were amazing.
Chris Stainton is an amazing piano player. Chris,
those first 2 Joe Cocker albums with the Grease Band. I mean, those are amazing.
I think it was the Grease Band. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the name of the band. It's the Grease Band. Yeah.
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 Fantastic.
Henry McCullough was part of it.
Oh, Henry McCullough. Was he the?
Then he went with Wings after the Grease Band.
Ah.
He started in Joe Cocker's Grease Band, and then he went to Paul and Wings.
Yeah, 72. January of 72, I believe he joined Wings.
Oh, no. Well, no. This was later on.
Way after.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I had to set up this live. They wanted to do everything live. Of course, I only had 10 channels. They had 10 channels.
Wow.
And there were 5 of them playing in the studio.
Okay.
And,
wow.
I really had to get my thinking cap on to do it. It was magic, absolute magic. I've still got it now, still got recordings of it now. And I listen to it, I think, did I really know what I was doing?
Right.
I don't think I did, but Jesus, it sounds good still.
But it sounds good, right? And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well, talk about this. You write in your bio says that drummers were always happy to work with you because you had this live drum sound. So talk about that. What was that about?
Yeah, there was in the 70s. It was all really dead drum sounds,
mm-hmm.
and I used to watch shows like McHale's Navy and the Munsters and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And I always think I still watch the Munsters. I used to think, God, that's a really great drum sound. It sounds like it's in a room, and of course, it was in a big studio, wasn't it? You know,
right?
And I think when I started recording, I said, I'm not going to do these dead, boring dead drum sounds. I'm going to make it sound a bit like McHale's Navy theme music drum sound, you know.
Okay, right.
And and there was also partly an accent when you'd have the drummer and the piano player in the same room. You couldn't not get a live drum sound because you're getting so much spill onto the piano mics.
Okay.
Anyway, a lot of people really liked it, so it was good.
Cool. Great.
So,
Great.
Julian, you please indulge this crazy Yes fan on your tale of how you came to working with Yes. Please.
Yes.
We're not there
Anyway, okay. Anyway, so about 77, 78, I started doing some demos with an accountant.
Okay.
Who used to write these songs with a New Zealand friend. They had a publishing deal. He was really nice bloke. We used to do great demos together. And one day he mentioned, Psalm Studios, they've had a fire and they're rebuilding. Do you want me to see if we can get you a job? I said, all right, yeah, I'll give it a go. Anyway, I went across and saw Jill, who later became Trevor's wife. And she gave me the job. Had a couple of years there, 1981. When did Drama come out? 81, 82?
80.
80. Anyway, somehow, because Eddie Offord was doing the album with Yes at the Townhouse Studios, he then found it all too much and went a bit crazy. And Trevor and Jeff, how they met them, I don't know. It was after Video Killed the Radio Star.
Okay.
Anyway, Trevor and Jeff took over the production of this. They'd already been on this album for a year.
Wow.
Anyway, it all came down to what they were doing is they were recording the album in 3 or 4 different studios at the same time on 48 track. So
yeah.
you'd have what's the guitarist's name? Come on, quick.
Steve Howe.
Steve Howe, what a lovely bloke. You'd have Steve Howe in one studio working on his guitars. You'd have Chris Squire doing vocals and basses in another studio. So they're all doing it independently.
Wow.
You know, the money, the budget must have been ridiculous.
Through the roof, yeah. Well, talk about Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, Trevor and Jeff got the job. Trevor then started to sing. Anyway, this thing was an ongoing, massive job. Massive. Gary Langham was the main engineer and I was like the sidekick engineer. So
okay. Gotcha.
But it was a massive job. We were working 24 hours a day.
Wow.
I'd do the day shift, Gary would do the night shift. And then we'd swap over. We'd do 2 weeks of that. We'd swap over and I'd do the night shift and Gary would do the day shift. You know, it was pretty hard work.
It's a record that I know still stands the test of time with the Yes fans, even though it's 40 years later. It's only got 6 tracks on it, but it remains a favorite of a lot of Yes fans. It does.
Yeah. Well, one very, very long track called Machine Messiah.
A wonderful song.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing something, I think it was vocals with Chris Squire. And Chris was always a day late getting to the session.
Always.
That was the way he lived. But in fact, the roadies used to turn his watch. Seriously. Anyway, I was doing the night shift. Session was supposed to start at 7 p.m. Came in, set everything up. 1 o'clock he turns up.
Of course.
1 o'clock. Yeah, which was pretty good for him. It's been an hour and a half setting up the microphone, hour and a half setting up the microphone to do vocals.
That was
the vocals.
Yeah.
Of course, Machine Messiah, in those days we had no automation, so you had to do all the moves on the mixing desk as you're playing the track back. manually.
Wow.
Just like, the track was full. There's 46 tracks of stuff.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because
let me just finish the story, because this is funny.
Okay. Right.
Anyway, he comes in, he says, right, I think we've got the vocals now. I'll come in and have a listen. He says, play it from the beginning. I said, okay. So start playing this thing. I'm doing turning this fader and doing that, putting echo on there and doing that. At the end of this 10-minute track, I said, how was that, Chris? He says, he was asleep.
Of course he was. Of course he was. And there's everything in that track but the kitchen sink, so kudos to you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything in
it. It was
there.
hard work, mate, I'll tell you.
I believe it. I believe
so at this point now, you jump to SARM studio, and you
I was at SARM East then, the original SARM in Whitechapel.
Right. So now you got a 48 track. I mean, talk about the transition from going to an 8 to a 48.
Well, that was, of course, we can do as much as we like now. We can put as much on the song as we like. Of course, that was a mistake.
I mean, I can imagine you're always, sometimes you're overthinking something and you're adding the bells, you're adding whistles.
Adding.
Yeah. Just because you can.
There was a lot of lessons to be. I mean, we had lots of technical dramas too, because it was the beginning of syncing up to 24 tracks machines. We learned a hell of a lot from that.
Gotcha. Got you. So yeah, working with Yes, and then in '81 you get your first #1 with working with Musical Youth, which with a song that was I'm a first generation MTV fan. My butt was planted in front of MTV every chance I had, and one of my favorite videos was Pasta Dolce by Musical Youth, and amazing that you worked on it, and now you got a #1 out of that in the UK. I mean, it was a big hit here in the States too, but it didn't go #1.
Was it? I didn't know that.
I think it was a top 10, I believe. I'll have to double check. Yeah, but I mean, I remember that video getting a lot of airplay on MTV, and just a great fun song. And how did you come to work with them? Did they just pop in?
Well, that was Jill.
Contract?
That was Jill. I'd done a couple of things with Peter Collins. He was the producer.
Okay.
Which joins on to our story about the bloke who got on the plane. Anyway, that's I might tell you. If we get time, I'll tell you. Anyway, so Jill said, I said, do I have to do this musical? I said, do I have to do this Musical Youth thing? And she said, no, go on, work with Peter. You'll get on really great. It could be the start of something. Anyway, we did the record. We did a mix of it, and it all turned out really great. That was the beginning. And then I did lots of stuff with Peter after that, until the bloke who got on the plane ended up working with him.
Oh, that's funny. And then another one of my favorite, videos from that day was "Shock the Monkey," Peter Gabriel.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that was a special
that was a last minute thing, as it was described.
No, that was organised a week or two. Okay. I can't remember. It wasn't a last minute thing.
Okay.
That was, but a funny thing is, set up the studio, 10 o'clock in the morning, got everything set up, and then this bloke walks down with all this gear, and I said, I'll just chuck it over there, mate. And that was Peter.
Wow.
Peter
really
Gabriel,
nice bloke.
Yeah.
Lovely bloke, yeah.
Is it true that he works at a snail's pace, though, or is he I've read that he works very, very slow with everything that he does. Is that true?
Probably. I didn't work. We just did the mix in a day. It was
quick.
Gotcha.
And we had his engineer with us who'd recorded the track. What was his name? John? Can't remember. He was a really nice guy. John
Burns, maybe?
No, I can't remember. Yeah, he was an old bloke, and I was always gleaning stuff off all these other people to learn the craft. So
gotcha. Okay, so
it was very special.
The song's recorded, and then now you mix it. If you can, to people that don't know, I mean, I'm kind of ignorant with it. I mean, the mixer. I mean, what exactly does the mixer do
just gets the right balance and the right sounds. The balance is the most important thing.
Gotcha.
I learned that later. I learned that around about that time when I was working with a bloke called Mike Batt. You heard of him?
No.
He used to do big albums, with orchestras on it. And,
okay. Gotcha.
He had the London Symphony Orchestra on this track that I was mixing for him. Massive track, another Yes type of track. And I started to mix the orchestra. It had a rock band with it. And I just couldn't get the orchestra to sound right. And he said, right, I spent 3 or 4 days on it. He said, right, I'll just get in a friend of mine. The bloke came in, he did orchestras all the time. There was no mucking around with EQ and reverbs and all that sort of stuff. And he just balanced it up, and that was that. And I learnt my lesson there. That was a big moment. The balance is more important than individual sounds.
Interesting.
If there's something wrong with the individual sound once you got the balance, then you fix it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, so the early 80s, I mean, this must be a happening time for you, because not only that, then you're also doing a remix for Relax for Frankie Goes to Hollywood as well.
That was last minute.
That was the last minute one. Okay.
Yeah,
so
that was last minute.
Right. So the song is already there, and then now they want a remix of the song?
No. Trevor was Steve Lipson had recorded it.
Okay.
Steve?
No.
I know that he works with Trevor Horn.
Yeah, he did. He did work with
Trevor
Horn.
Yes.
And he did the Flowers in the Dirt album.
Correct.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway, Steve is a lovely bloke. He's now done the Bond theme, by the way.
Okay.
He's engineered. Anyway, that's beside the point. I'll just give him a little plug there in case he watches it.
That's great. Yes, absolutely.
He's done really well with his film music because he's good friends with Hans Zimmer. But anyway, Trevor he spent a year making that single, many different versions, including the Blockheads.
Wow.
And the record company were up in arms. You spent too much money. We need this single now. Steve had done a couple of mixes. Sometimes very difficult to do a mix of something you've spent a long time on and recorded yourself. Right. You can't see. Anyway, Trevor took it to the mastering engineer, Ian Cooper, and Ian said, Trevor, the vocal's not sitting quite right. It's not right. And of course, Trevor being ultra paranoid about everything and picky about everything. Oh no, I'm going to have to get a mix. This was on a Sunday. He rings me 10 o'clock Sunday night and says, Jules, can you come in and mix Relax for me? I'll see you at 8 o'clock in the morning. Get in there at 8. We finished the mix at 10:30. Took a couple of hours. We did had a quick go at the B-side, and then we had a wild ride across town to Townhouse mastering, where Ian said, yep, that's it. That's it, you're off. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. And then that became a #1 as well, I believe, Relax.
#1, not in America, but pretty much everywhere else.
Right. And then another big band in the UK that you worked with then too, the Pet Shop Boys, which they were pretty big here in the States too, because again, being planted in front of MTV, we had West End Girls.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was a massive hit here in the States. But
I didn't do West End Girls, but anyway.
But the following album, I believe, that had It's a Sin and Always on My Mind. Those were the songs you did work on, and those were #1 hits as well.
I did half of that second album.
Okay.
Oh no, hang on. Was it all on the West End Girls? Might have been on that album, wasn't it? I don't know. I can't remember.
No, I think it was the following album.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did half of that, and Stephen Hague, who did West End Girls, did the other half.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
that was great to work with.
Right. I mean, what did you think of the music scene right then? Because then it was kind of really changing into like this more of this new wave, a lot of synth at the time.
Yeah.
What was your feeling about that genre of music?
Well, I was earlier on. I was a bit against it because I loved all my rock bands. I loved Free. I loved Steely Dan. I loved Little Feat. Probably my favourite band of
Really?
all time. Oh
No
yeah,
kidding.
absolutely.
Mm.
They were the band's band. You know,
Okay.
they were the band that were really not individuals. They were just a band. You know, one. You know,
right.
probably if I ended up on a desert island, that's the record. The last record album would be the one I'd take.
Okay.
For
Of
the
Little
name
Feat.
of it. Yeah, fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, so eventually, I mean, we're at the cusp of Fairlight. You know, the Fairlight sequencer thing.
Yeah.
Sampler. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, because I know Yes has used it quite a bit.
Yeah. In fact, that was I think that was the first record we used the Fairlight on.
Yeah. I did a little homework on that. I know Jeff Downs brought the Fairlight into drama sessions, and I know it was also used on the follow-up album 90125 that Trevor also produced as in addition to that.
Yeah, my friend JJ was the Fairlight operator on 90125 and Relax.
Right.
And a lot of Trevor's stuff for quite a few years.
Gotcha. So right around this time, then you end up meeting Paul Wix Wickens, who was a sessions player.
I met Paul through, Wix, I call him.
Right.
I met him through Peter Collins when we were doing lots of little jobs, and then we did Nick Kershaw. He was the main programmer and keyboard player on Nick Kershaw.
Okay.
2 albums, and we just became really good friends. And then early 90s, I was looking for somebody to do a record with a girl called Tasman Archer.
Okay.
And I really wanted Wix to do it, and we did it, and we had a hit together. It was a big #1 hit. Not in America, unfortunately.
Right.
I wish.
Right.
that's a trend that happens, unfortunately, too often. It's a hit everywhere except us here. Us Yanks don't get it all the time. Right.
Yeah, she had just the voice. I mean, take a bit of time and look up Tasman Archer Sleeping Satellite. She has got the voice. She has got a voice that it couldn't be anybody else. It can only be her. She's got a totally unique voice. And anyway, we were really lucky to do that record. And that's how, and then Wix, we'd had the hit record, and then Wix went back to work for Paul because he was Paul's musical director. He'd been that for years. And Wix must have said something to Paul. He said, why don't we do the next record with Julian?
Right.
Went down and saw Julian and saw Paul and Linda, and that was the beginning of that. I was supposed to only be there for 3 months, but I ended up being a year.
It's long recording session for that album.
Well, I was only supposed to be there for 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing 10 tracks or something, but what happened right at the beginning? We did a track right at the beginning, which I wish I had a copy of. I can't find it. Which was a really great track, but I did it in the traditional way that I do it, which is a lot of programming and stuff. And Paul didn't really enjoy sitting around waiting for things to get done in that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they all came in. Him and Linda came in few mornings later and said, right, we're going to change track here. We're going to put all the band into the room across I think it was into a barn or something. We're going to record it live. We're going to do 20-25 tracks.
Wow.
And we'll just choose the best.
Right. So the book I got here looked like Biker Like an Icon was the first song or first track that was worked on. I don't know if that rings a bell or anything.
Can't remember.
Yeah. But so Wix, but before that though, you also remixed a couple songs from his Press to Play album, Tough. It's Not
did a couple
and Tough on a Tightrope.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you remember how that came to be?
No.
Okay.
I was very busy at the time. You know,
Right.
It was probably just another job, and you just remixed
Right.
it. And you just,
oh no, it was more than another job, but
Right.
I was really busy at the time, and it was all of
hot
you know,
period.
82 to 90 was a bit of a blur for me.
Right.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would imagine seeing the name McCartney and doing a couple tracks. I mean, that must have caught your attention at least.
Of course it did. Yeah. I also did an Elton John one too, around about that time, called Passengers.
Okay.
Wasn't really one of the greatest tracks, and I did some remixes for Dave Robinson at Stiff Records on Bob Marley, legend.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, before we get one more thing.
That was pretty amazing doing that, because that was in the same room that he recorded them.
Okay. Gotcha.
Very, very, quite spooky, actually.
Wow.
Interesting. One more thing before we get to Paul. It also I find this fascinating because I was listening to another show and they had Dennis DeYoung from the singer from Styx, or the ex-singer from Styx, on there, and he was talking about how trying to help Liza Minnelli her career, and I saw that you had worked with her too, and then it was I believe it was Gene Simmons of Kiss who tried to get Liza Minnelli into more like a pop sound, kind of like Barbara Streisand in a way.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, do you remember anything about, Dennis DeYoung being involved, or Gene Simmons with the Liza Minnelli? Okay.
No, it was all Pet Shop Boys.
It was all Pet Shop Boys? Okay.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really great. She was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And the songs were really good. I sometimes think that if the Pet Shop Boys had done that album for themselves, it would have been a massive
bigger hit.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But no, it was a really great experience.
Okay.
Really great experience.
So meeting Paul and Linda, going back to that, I mean, what was the conversation like? Because I mean,
I remember. It was good. It was nice. It was very nice. Went upstairs and built the studio. He's got a lovely room up there. Right. We just had a bit of a chat, and it was just really, really easy going. I mean, Linda was a lovely lady.
And was it agreed upon from the start that it was going to be a full co-production for the whole album, or a couple of tracks, or
no, the whole album? Yeah.
Okay, it was going to be the whole album. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was curious about too, with producers, when it is a co-production like that. Talk about that for a second. I mean, if both parties aren't on the same page, I mean, I guess it could be kind of stressful at times.
Well, that's why it was stressful when Trevor and Steve did Flowers in the Dirt with Paul, because Trevor wants to do it his way.
Right.
And Paul's ego doesn't want to let that happen.
Well, and that's funny too, because
they still made a great record, but having said that, all Trevor's records were stressful. He thrived on stress.
Right.
If things weren't going well, that was the best thing for him.
That was good.
Right.
That was good.
That was really good. Yeah.
Right. Because then, it's funny how you say like that your initial conversation was fine or lovely, because then you hear things like how the next album, Flaming Pie, where Jeff Lynne was the co-producer, and he was more like up front with them, saying, look, this is not going to be an ELO sounding record. This is going to be a Paul McCartney record. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to hear, his tone, throughout his whole career. But I'm glad it was, a nice, lovely conversation at first.
It was. So, we had a really great guy. I mean, I have to say, I was a bit overwhelmed by the whole thing.
Right. Gotcha.
But I probably didn't force my point as much as I should have at times. But it was very easy working with a band, with somebody with so much talent as Paul, and the band, who are, amazing.
Right.
Pretty easy to work with those sorts of people, because, you record something and even if you've got a crap sound on it, it still sounds good.
It's right because it's live and you're recording and you're playing live, and what's better than that?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was live, but we did replace a lot of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Right. I mean, did he play you any demos at first, or he just all the run through was recorded live?
Hope and Deliverance, I think.
Okay.
No, it was all pretty blind, actually. It was all pretty blind.
Got you. So you didn't know what you were walking into then, really?
No. I mean, it was. I probably shouldn't have been there for a year.
Wow.
To be truthful, and I wish I hadn't been. Although I enjoyed it.
Right.
Me and Wix had just had this big hit single, so I was up there in demand. I was up there for doing stuff.
Your confidence level,
a lot of stuff down.
Right. Your confidence level had to, within yourself had to have been really high at that point in time.
Yeah. I had to turn. In fact, one weekend, about halfway through Paul's album, Duran Duran wanted me to do a mix of that massive ballad single they had called
Ordinary World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, I had the weekend off, and I thought, can I do this? I really want, because I heard the rough mix. I thought, oh wow, that's an amazing record. And I thought, can I do this? Can I do it? And then I thought, oh God, if I can't, because Paul was really strict. If I'd rung up and said, I'm sorry, I'm doing something else. If I rang up on Monday and said, I'm just finishing another mix, I'm sorry, I can't come down.
Right.
I don't know what he would have said.
Right.
He might have been a little bit annoyed.
What were your thoughts about McCartney's career up to that point?
That was a little bit up and down, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, were you following it at all? I mean, were you a McCartney fan?
I was with the Wings, and then I lost it a little bit after Wings. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
But actually, when I did Press to Play, it came back up again. I thought, this is really, really good stuff.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, it sounded like a lot of stuff that you were working on, too, at the time.
Very contemporary
yeah.
for its time.
Yeah. And actually, the first track we did on Off the Ground, which is the one, what didn't come out, didn't come out on the album, I did that in the way that I was doing the stuff with Wix, like the Tasman Archer. We did a lot of programming, making it sound real and all that.
Right.
And he just didn't enjoy waiting around for us to get it all sorted out.
Right. It was like Off the Ground, the song Off the Ground. I think that's the one.
No, the album.
Oh, okay.
Can't remember what the song's called. It was released.
Was it B-side?
Eventually. My engineer, Bob Kraushaar, did it.
Okay.
He did a mix of it.
Okay.
It was a really great track. Yeah. And I was a bit disappointed. It never really saw the light.
What did you? What were your thoughts on the Mill studio, the Hog Hill?
Oh, it's a great studio. I wasn't a big Neve fan though. He had a Neve.
Okay.
I was an SSL man.
Right. Because I think about right around that time he started getting a lot of stuff from EMI that they were eventually going to get rid of. So, he had a lot of stuff in there.
Vintage.
Yeah, there was a lot of gear.
Yeah, a lot of vintage consoles.
Yeah, no, there was nothing like that there. There was just a bit of outboard gear. It wasn't that over the top. Didn't have that much gear. But, they had enough. Look, gear's gear. It's not going to make you make a better record. Is it? It's all down to the song and the performance.
Right. Is it a good? Yeah. Is it a good singer? And is it a good song? Does it have a good melody? Right.
That's all you need.
Right.
Isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Certainly coming from an engineering side, that's what you see. If you're a producer, you can probably, like Trevor did, he turns a germ of an idea into a hit record.
Right.
Whereas coming from an engineering side, not many people would be able to do that.
Gotcha.
But having said that, I had a couple of moments where I managed to turn nothing to something.
Oh.
But bloody hard work.
When I mean, there's a lot of social, political issues, sung about on that album. I mean, what were your thoughts when you started hearing songs like "Big Boys Bickering" and
Well, I'd already seen that one with Two Tribes.
Okay.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes, which was about Reagan and Gorbachev.
Okay.
Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, it was it was a very rare moment for Paul to step into that political world, and on that record, there's a couple songs. There's just very political overtones and a lot of that, and some of the he was writing at that time.
Yeah.
Well, what was the one about the
looking for changes?
Looking for changes. That's right. Yeah.
Very pro-animal. Right.
Yeah. Peace in the neighborhood.
Peace in the neighborhood.
Long Leather Coat too was another one for for animal rights and stuff like that. So
that's right.
But then had you ever met George Martin before that time?
Oh, you must have read my mind, because I just remembering he came in to listen to Come On People.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. He came in and he's sitting there listening to it. We'd just done the orchestra, and actually that was a time, because I'd got a balance up on that, and it was just absolute magic. I thought, I don't need to mix this anymore. I might have to do a couple of little tweaks here and there.
Right.
But did I ever get that balance back again? Never. You know what I'm saying? It was just a piece of magic where I innocently balanced up the track with the orchestra to play it to George, and I thought, this is sounding pretty good. When I took it home the day after, I thought, wow, that's great, but I couldn't get it back again. That was in the days when you couldn't get things back.
Had you worked or encountered with George Martin prior to that Come On People session?
No. Okay. But obviously another idol.
Right.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Unbelievable. So straight. Such a straight guy. What do you think of the records he made with the Beatles?
Right.
Just like hell. He's just like he's like an office manager.
Right.
And here he is doing all this stuff that's out of this world.
And it seems that just from what I've read and what we've read over the years, that really that was towards the end of George really kind of hanging it up, but Paul kept bringing him back to produce this song, or later on, a couple of years later, he produced a Beautiful Night on Flaming Pie. So he was always kind of just yanking George back for one last chance to produce something. Yeah.
He's amazing. One of my favorite albums of the late 70s was Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow.
Right.
Which was George Martin.
Right.
Still one of my favorite albums. Still. And I was really lucky to work with quite a couple of the guys in that, on that album. Max Middleton, the Rhodes player, who was just the best. And Richard Bailey was the drummer. He was amazing. I was lucky to work with them. It was a big moment when I worked with them.
Gotcha.
And, that was at the little studio.
So did George just conduct the orchestra, or did he get behind the console a little bit?
No, he was just listening. He was on the outside.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to Abbey Road to do the orchestra.
Okay.
The Abbey Road engineer did the orchestra. It's a big job. I had done a few orchestras in my time, but just for efficiency's sake, much easier just to get the studio engineer to do the job, because they do it every day,
Right.
And in fact, funnily enough, my daughter and I were watching one of the Harry Potter movies last night, and she said, "Oh, Dad, how do they do these orchestras? Is it all off the computer?" And I said, "No, Rubes, it's all recorded at Abbey Road."
Yeah, for those movies especially.
Right. Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, big production.
Yeah, and I said, I've recorded in there, Rubes. She says, "Really, Dad? Really?"
And another big name is, Carl Davis came in to help out with a couple tracks as well. We familiar with his work?
Rings a bell. I don't remember that.
Because he worked on Golden Earth Girl and Mistress and Maid, and he had just did the Liverpool
strings. Yeah, he did the strings. He did the strings on those 2 tracks.
I think we did those at the mill.
Okay.
Did we do those at the mill? I think we did those at the mill. It was just a small string section.
That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I'd brushed with Carl Davis at the original studio, the little studio I started off at.
Okay.
I had done a little bit of stuff with him there. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Full circle then. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And the funniest thing was I ended up doing a proper album with Paul Rodgers in the 80s.
Wow.
Which is pretty
that must have been like a dream come true too. Sure.
That was a dream come true. Yeah.
Amazing. Did working with someone like a Paul who has all this, a few more years experience than you did. I mean, were you able to learn anything from him behind the board or?
Nothing on the board, but just attitude. I think musical attitude.
Okay.
I mean, he was. Sometimes I'd come in the morning and he'd be playing on his drum kit out in the studio, thinking, oh, shit, why can't I have him playing drums? He's just amazing. And some people, like Paul Rodgers was in the same ball, didn't matter what they picked up, even if they played something really simply, just had something magical. And Paul was like that with everything. Didn't matter what he played. Drums, wow. Wouldn't you love that drum feel on your records? Right. Bass, obviously bass, keyboards, guitar, vocals, everything.
That's been his talent his whole life. Yeah.
Seriously talented in the musical, in that sort of thing. Yeah.
You talked about only supposed to be there for 3 months, and you ended up being there for a year. Did you sense anything with him not happy with certain songs? That why he kept on, recording them over, or did he?
No, there was a couple we redid. We did have a choice of, I think we had 25 songs recorded as backing tracks. Mm-hmm. So we just chose the best.
Okay.
Well, I think he chose the best, actually.
Right.
Him and Linda chose the best. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because, you got like all this material enough for a double album, which you probably, he usually does do that from time to time, record enough stuff for a double album. And, excuse me. And then one of the things about Off the Ground is that a lot of people love those B-sides a little bit more than maybe the stuff that were on the albums.
Yeah, I never got to know what the B-sides were. What was the B-side of Hope of Deliverance? Was it Down by the River?
Oh, let me double check on that one. Good question.
Well, that's Down by the River is a B-side. I don't know if it's that.
Right. It was a B-side, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Down by the River and Kicked Around No More.
Kicked Around No More was a CD single was on the CD single of Hope to
Around No More.
Right.
Piano ballad.
Oh, let me whip out.
Probably don't remember that.
Here.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember that. I remember the name, but I can't remember the song.
Okay. The B-side of Hope to Deliverance was Long Leather Coat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, again, another very Animal Pro-activist song.
Yeah.
Right. And then, let's see here. Damn it, that's the one I have at the moment. But then I think Big Boys Bickering was also a B-side.
Of course.
Kicked Around No More was also a B-side.
Yeah.
Sweet Memories as well was another
Memories, one. Style.
Sweet Memories on the record.
No.
B-side.
Oh, I do remember that one. Remember that one.
Right.
What was the other one you just mentioned?
Style.
I think that rings a bell.
Of course, Cosmically Conscious, which was a big, long kind of...
Oh, well, that was at the end of Come On People.
Come on. Right. Yeah, exactly.
That was a fantastic night when we had that.
Oh, really?
Can I tell you the story?
Please. For Tom, too, please.
Yeah.
Anyway, we thought Come On People and Cosmically Conscious was It was like the hippie part of the album, you know, especially Cosmically Conscious. Anyway, one day we're in the studio and John, Johnny's assistant, comes running and says, "Paul, I've got Eddie Murphy on the phone." Paul goes, "Oh, quick, I'll go. I'll say hello to Eddie." Anyway,
that's right. Eddie Murphy.
Turns out Eddie was doing a charity record with every singer he could get to sing on it, just yodel over the track, and he was going to fix it all up later. So he had Elton on it. He had Bruce Springsteen, and he said, "Oh, Paul, can you do a bit of stuff on the top of this record, bit of ad-libbing?" And Paul says, "Yeah, no problem. Well, when can you come over to New York?" Paul says, "Oh, well, we're in the middle of an album at the moment. I can't really get over there. Why don't you come here?" Anyway, it was agreed that Eddie would come over, and Paul would do his little overdubs on the top of this track. And anyway, we set it all up. Linda had this great idea that we'd all be dressed up as hippies. With long hair. She went to the costume place and got us all hair, and we had incense going and fake joints and all sorts of stuff.
Wait, fake?
Yeah, fake.
Fake.
By that time, maybe fake. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a Friday night, about 5, 6 o'clock. John, the assistant, comes in and says, they're just coming down the drive. They're coming up the driveway now. Anyway, there were about 6 limos, including a massive stretched limo. Now, Andy would know that some of the lanes round in England are very, very narrow. Would you know that, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we wondered how he'd got this limo. Anyway, they all turned up. There were probably 24 blokes, all immaculately dressed in these amazing suits, including Eddie. Anyway, a few of them come in. The engineer is dressed like me in jeans and a T-shirt. And they all come into the control room. And then there was this, like, one legend and another legend. You know? And and Eddie thought that we were being normal with all this gear on. He didn't get it. There was no laughing.
He didn't get the joke.
It was for real.
Of course he did. He just thought he was walking into a regular old time there where you're all hanging out.
Yeah. Anyway, it was the most bizarre night. And me and the engineer were sitting a little bit away. We're just going,
wow.
Having a real laugh between us.
And Eddie totally just didn't get it. Wow.
Didn't get it. They were so serious. All of them, apart from he's a recording engineer who was right in on the job.
In on it, of course. Yeah.
Very, very, very strange evening.
Right.
Anyway.
Any tough nights during the off the ground sessions that ring a bell to you? Challenging nights, maybe.
Challenging. Not really. No, it was all pretty easy going.
Okay.
Sometimes Linda would come in the morning and say, "Watch out, he's got out the wrong side of bed." No, there was. We didn't work very long hours. We only worked 10 till 6 or 7.
Okay. Right.
You know, that was about it. So I lived about an hour and a half away, or I could stay in a hotel. I stayed in a hotel for a couple of months, but I didn't enjoy it that much, so I'd drive home most nights.
Yeah, that's a long day to drive, an hour and a half, and work all day and come back. That's quite a...
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the hotel that much.
No.
No, so there you go.
Any of the tracks are standout tracks for you? I mean, that are on the album. I mean, I can call them out to you.
Hang on, let me get my iTunes up. Let me get my iTunes up, because I'm hopeless with names.
Well, I have the album right in front of me too.
I know, I'm getting it in front of me. Just hang on to your horses.
You got it. You got it.
we only just did a show on the album, Tom. Come on.
I know.
EQ. Pretenders, hang on. Power Station, there's one. Pink Floyd. Paul Rogers, Paul McCartney. Songs, here we go. Wine, Dark, Open Sea, I really liked.
Cool. My favorites.
Lovers That Never Were, really liked that one.
Ooh,
Golden
I'd like
Earth
to hear
Girl,
that.
loved that. I did like the slow ones more than the quick ones.
So did I. I'm a really big fan of the ballads on this album. I owe it all to you. I owe it all to you. Golden Earth Girl and Wine Dark.
Yeah. Mistress and Maid. Did I like that one? Hang on, let me play a bit of it. Yeah, I like that one. Bit too much delay on the vocal note.
Do you recall hearing his 87 demo version or vocal of The Lovers That Never Were? Because it was a little bit more, raw and powerful than what ended up on
I only heard them play it. They would have played it as a band, and that's all I heard.
Gotcha.
I wasn't aware that some of these were older songs.
But a few of them, and a few of them go back to that Flowers in the Dirt era with Elvis Costello.
Is that right? Well, some of them were Elvis Costello, but I thought they'd recently collaborated. No. I didn't know it was a few years before.
Yeah, I think it was started, in 86 or 87?
87, 88.
Yeah. So, cool. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. I really enjoyed the ballads on this album.
It's an album. I was a young teenager when the album came out. When Tom and I just did a whole show on the whole album with another guest, and it's quite a polarizing album for a lot of McCartney fans. Some either love it or hate it. I've been in the camp. I always enjoyed it from the moment that I heard it from start to finish.
Well, that's great. That's great. See, it took me a long time to enjoy listening to it. When you run something for a year, all you hear are
you get sick of it. You have to get some distance from it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also, like just then, I just listened to Mistress and Maid, and I thought, why did I put so much delay on the vocal? Too much delay. Don't know what I'm doing. What?
Do you find yourself doing that with your work, going back, listening to something maybe a few years down the line and saying, "Oh man, why did I do?" Pretty much questioning yourself.
Not that much, but more when I've finished it and I listen to it, I think, God, that's not quite right. That little bit there, that's a mistake. And then 2 years down the line, I think, what was I worried about? There was no mistake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's scary, Julian, is to think that this album is almost 30 years old. Isn't that?
Don't say that, please.
Edit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So just at the moment, last year I spent a whole year mixing an album for a bloke called Phil Gould, who was one of the main songwriters and the drummer in Level 42.
Okay.
Yeah, that's woken me up a little bit.
Wow.
Because it's different these days. They have so many options with the Pro Tools based recordings. Oh boy, that really made me work hard. It was really brilliant stuff. But he'd been recording that album for 4 or 5 years over the last 4 or 5 years.
Were they
where he sent it off to different musicians around the world, friends in US and friends in Europe. They'd all do their bit, and then he'd sort out a little bit, and then I have to sort out the whole lot.
That seems to be the way of making records now, is everybody sends their bits across the world, and they work on it remotely, and then somebody like yourself puts the record together, and once they've got all the bits selected. There
probably weren't many recording engineers that were involved with the record.
Yeah.
It's all the musicians doing their own engineering.
Was Level 42 the band that did that song? There Must Be Something About You.
Something About You was their
Something
big
About You. Yeah, that's it.
That's another song that was pretty big here in the States.
Yeah, tops. I think it got to number 6 in Billboard.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a massive tour with Madonna in the late 80s.
Wow.
Right.
was interesting for them.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
So Off the Ground comes out in '93, and it's really the start of the whole grunge scene. What were your thoughts on grunge at that time?
I thought grunge was, well, I didn't get into the grunge. There wasn't much grunge that I got into, really.
Yeah. You know, because I was, I had kind of had like my little Beatle break in between that time, So I went head deep. I mean, I went head first. I was a big Nirvana fan, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden.
Not grunge, are they?
Oh yeah. Nirvana is
Really?
like the Godfather. Yeah, that's the grunge scene right there. Yeah, it was Soundgarden.
Oh, I thought they were just a heavy rock band.
What Tom is trying to tell you, Julian, is that he was heavily into grunge and he did not like Off the Ground when it first came out.
Fair enough.
That's what he's trying to tell you.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, no. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him.
I, however, liked it. I liked it from the day I bought it.
Yeah, well, you're a very good friend of mine, Andy.
Hey, Andy, right here, buddy. Right here.
Back at you, baby.
What are you working on now? What do you work besides that?
Just finished this Phil Gould album, and I'm not now having a break. It's been quite intense. Intense. Long-winded because he's in the UK. I'm here. His time is opposite my time. Massive amount of information that I had to sift through to make it all work.
Right.
I've got a Pro Tools setup, which is the middle Pro Tools setup, which has got 125 tracks.
Okay.
And there was, on some of the tracks, there were many, many, many more than 125 tracks. Somehow I had to fit it all onto my Pro Tools. It was quite intense, and he's very picky too.
Gotcha.
Wow. I'm due for a rest now. I also do another local band called the Glorious, who are sort of a retro, folky, sort of melodic band. They're really good. That's just been ticking over. I've been doing them for 10 years. He's actually learned from Dave, the main man, has learned from me how to mix now. So I just let him do it now. I'm just the consultant.
Well, listen, you've had a very.
He sends me the mix. I said, "I'll pay you to listen to this." I said, "Oh, okay." Yeah, that sounds great, Dave.
Well, Julian, you
deserve it now. You're better than me.
Well, listen.
He'll probably watch this, actually.
Good.
Well, good. Well, listen, you deserve to take it easy. You've had a storied career and one that you've made some amazing records and worked with some amazing people. So it's bravo to.
Yeah, my tool at hand now is the chainsaw. Chainsaw and the tractor. That's all I seem to do. Just cut wood and move it with the tractor.
Yeah. Before we sign out, can I ask you your thoughts on a couple famous Australian singer-songwriters? Just to get your thoughts on
who? Like who?
Well, okay, let's start off with your thoughts about the Bee Gees. I mean, they started there, didn't they?
The Bee Gees were amazing. Another massive band. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, AC/DC, I imagine were massive in Australia then.
Yeah. Well, they're one of the two best rock bands in the world. The number one would be Led Zeppelin for me, and number two probably AC/DC in a different way. Different way.
Sure.
What about Men at Work?
Yeah, Men at Work, they were good.
Okay.
There's lots of good bands down here.
Yeah,
lots of good bands.
My sweetheart. So go easy, Olivia Newton-John. What are your thoughts on her?
Oh, well, she's good. No, she is good.
It's only good. Yeah, let's see. There was a lukewarm good.
I know.
Well, not my total cup of tea.
The band Jet, I think, is Australian too, right?
Jet, yeah, I didn't like Jet very much.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like they had their 15 minutes and they kind of faded away a little bit.
Yeah. I did a band in the early 80s when I was just sort of becoming a producer with a band called the Machinations. Well, that was actually a band where they really didn't have many complete songs, and I had to actually help them put all the songs together.
Really?
That was bloody hard work. That was really hard work. They were good. I still speak to them occasionally. That was a long time, nearly 40 years ago.
Right. Oh. Nice. Well, we want to thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time and talking with us. I'm glad we could make this work. And I mean, is there any, I mean, do you want people to find you and reach out to you, or are you kind of like being, you know?
Well, my website's there if they want to find me. I'm
more
there.
Noise.
More noise. My friend Gary and JJ, the Fairlight operator, and Gary Langan, who were the Art of Noise.
Right.
Gary, do you remember the Art of Noise?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, they are they still are the Art of Noise. I said, Gary, what do I call my because I had a company in the UK, and he said, what do I call my company? He said, More Noise. That'll do.
More Noise.
That was that. So it came from the Art of Noise.
Great.
I was More Noise.
Right.
Fantastic.
Well, awesome. Well, this was great.
And just to go back to the bloke who got the plane.
Oh yeah.
Just let you know, I was I'd come down here to do some productions down here in 82 or something, and the engineer at Bill Armstrong Studios was a bloke called Jimbo Barton. And we got on, really hit it off. Just after I'd finished doing these productions with him, he said, look, if anything comes up and you need an engineer over there, or if anybody needs one, give me a ring. Anyway, I was coming to the end of my second Nick Kershaw album with Peter Collins, and I said, Pete, I'm going freelance, because I was still I wasn't freelance then.
Okay.
Still working for the studio. Said, Pete, I've got a lot of work coming in. I'm going to go freelance. Not sure I'll always be there to do your stuff. And he said, what am I going to do? And I said, I know. Why don't you ring Jimbo? Anyway, I rang Jimbo that night. Jimbo was on the plane the next day, came over to the UK, worked with Peter for 10 or 15 years. They did Queensryche, they did Rush, they did... And then Jimbo built a studio in LA with another bloke, and they did lots of TV music, and now he's back here.
Wow.
So there you go.
Great.
Full circle. Cool.
That's the man that got on the plane the day after he was spoken to.
Nice.
Fantastic.
And never looked back.
Never looked back.
No, great for him.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this was great.
Thanks, guys.
You. And that was great, Andy, talking with Julian. Wow. It exceeded my expectations, really. We had a lot of fun.
Mine too. This was the first time we got like a legit producer that worked on Paul McCartney album that you hate for the record, and I'm glad you said it to him.
Thanks a lot.
I had to. I had to say it. I had to say it.
Well, you did.
This was a great interview, and thank you for coordinating it, and it worked out well.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So everybody, you can reach us out, twolegspodcast@gmail.com. YouTube, Two Legs of Paul McCartney Podcast. Please subscribe to that. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Two Legs Podcast. We're working on a website that we're going to get to here soon. We're not going to rush it, but we're working on it
soon. And thank you, Ethan Alexanian, because he's helping us. Because we're not that web savvy design people. So Ethan, props to you. So thank you for helping us with that.
Cool. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Please keep those comments coming. And as always, everybody out there, Andy, good seeing you.
You too, brother.
Have a great day and a beautiful night.
Listening to Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, hosted by Tom Hunyadi and Andy Nichols, with musical contributions by Dylan Siegel.